Amber Edwards. Really enjoyed talking to Amber. Corspice. Her and her husband and a friend made a spice company. Fantastic history. The husband was in Korea, stationed there with the Marines, the MREs, the meals ready to eat. If you have a military background, you understand what they are. But he was very much into spices and chili spices at the time, I believe. He got so popular to add spices to the MREs. The soldiers would line up around his tent, and he was able to mix his spices in to make the MREs just that much better. Kind of spawned on to back in the States where he got together with another friend and they decided to make a spice company. Portion of the profits go to a military veteran group that the K9 group is called, that gives trained dogs to help veterans with PTSD. It's called K9s for veterans, to help them with PTSD and other trauma. It's a wonderful organization that Corspice is the name of the spice company that Amber and her husband own, give to. Wonderful discussion on how the spicing process is done. Great names of spices like Private Pork and A3 and Blackened Ops. Just a great discussion about spices. And by the way, they decided to start it in the pandemic. Absolutely wonderful. I really enjoyed this conversation. I love stories like these. Home business, start in the pandemic. You give a portion back to the community, back to veterans. It's just a great story. I love talking to Amber, and it's a great story. Thank you so much for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic. I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business? And it lasted over 25 years. Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Amber Edwards, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very, very excited to talk to you. What obstacles did you face when starting this home-based business in the pandemic?
Well, really, it's what didn't we face, right?
Mm.
We came up with, we've had the idea for a while, but the pandemic actually gave us the opportunity to do it, which was great. So that was, the shining star, so to speak. We came across just having problems with inventory and having problems with bottling and having problems with labels because, at the point, everybody was home, nobody was working. So production of all that was not happening as quickly as we would have liked. So it took us a little bit longer to get things moving and really get, how do you get samples if nobody's making labels? How do you get samples of bottles if nobody can get plastic bottles? So that was really the biggest hurdle because everything else was all the paperwork and how do we get everything set up and, what do we want our logo to look like? And even finding someone to create our logo was a challenge.
Really?
Yeah, it was a major challenge actually, because once you start with one person and then all of a sudden they fall off the face of the earth, so to speak. And it was all because of COVID. It was that weird time where you never knew what was going to go on. It was all new for everybody. So it was new for us as well. And then we decided to start a business. So there we were.
Amazing. So the story goes, and correct me if I have it wrong, but Bob is in Korea in the military, and Bill, and Yes, Bob came later. He's chief testing officer. So yeah, so the MREs, the meals ready to eat, the soldiers, they have mixed feelings about him, and he started making like something out of chili, and all of a sudden there was a line around the tent, and he was adding some of his spices to the MREs, and the soldiers were loving it.
Yes. So it was funny because Bill is my husband,
Ah,
and he was in the Marine Corps, and he still is a Marine. And anyways, so he had a friend over that he was in the Marine Corps with, and they were actually talking about this, which cracked me up because I like to hear the story as it unfolds as two Marines are talking about it, which is super,
mm,
it's just super fun to listen to. And they were talking about how they just absolutely hated the MREs, how horrible they were. So they would mix them all together, and then they were talking about how they were mixing them. I got a little grossed out because they were out in the field, but it was
right.
interesting and really fun to hear the whole story. But yeah, that's actually how it kind of, his trigger for loving to cook kind of came up, and season products and do all that good stuff. So
Yeah, and then he got a hold of some spices from Europe at one point, and there was too much salt in MSG, and he started pulling them apart, and then just started looking at the right correct mixture.
well, that was an interesting one too. We have friends from Italy. We went to Italy on vacation, and we loved this one seasoning. So the funny thing was is we brought it back, but we had no idea what was in it because obviously we didn't
Mm,
read Italian. So we had to have it translated by a friend of ours, figure out what was in it. And yeah, he worked on that for a good solid year before we were like, this
wow.
is it. This is it. And that was actually our first blend that we came out with, which was private pork.
Yeah, and but still the so correct me if I'm wrong. So you have right, Bill's your husband, and then he knows Bob, but Bob also was into this spice as well, and over multiple beers, they just decide to go for it.
Well, again, we were in COVID, and
Right.
it was interesting because at the beginning of COVID, Bob he lives in Arizona, we live in Chicago. So
Right.
he came out to visit us because he was on furlough. So he's like, I don't know when I'm going back to work. He's like, and I don't want to hang out here. He's like, I'm going to come and hang out with you guys. And we're
Hmm.
like, okay, great. So like the story goes, one night they were sitting around, and he said, we're just, you have to do this. Like, this is something that you have to do. He's like, people are always coming back to the house and going, refill these bottles, refill these bottles. So,
Right.
and he's like, he goes, I will back you guys, just do it. So hence the creation of a small business.
And he says, "I'm gonna fund this," and then next thing you know, you're there, and you've got a great shop, with all of these spices, and of course, we wanna kill the lead here, but you donate a large portion to back to the military, to the K-9. Is that what a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah, we do. We really, there's two things that we have a little bit of a bleeding heart for. And, one of them is animals, dogs. We have way too many ourselves. And obviously, the next one is helping out veterans. And we decided that if we are fortunate enough to be able to start this business and have the help and the support of everybody around us to start it, we should give back, and we should really give back in a big way. So, obviously, when you first start a business, it's very difficult to give back because you can barely make it as you are. So I came up with an idea that we have a local company here that makes hot sauce from scratch. So they made it for us. We labeled it with a local company that supply service dogs to veterans with PTSD, or even if they have any handicap that they need a service dog, and then they train them to literally be what they need them to be. So it's not just a strict training. It's like, if someone needs a dog that is trained in PTSD, that's what they will be trained in. If there was someone who has some handicap and they need help with something else, then they will be trained with that. Maybe someone has seizures, they'll be trained in that. So it's great. They take the dogs out of shelters, they train them, and they support the dog for the life of the dog. So that's medical bills, food, all of the training, everything. So we really like that because the veteran never has to give the dog back for any reason. It's always taken care of. The dog is good. And another reason why we decided to do that was because no one there takes a paycheck. And that we really liked because we know that our money is going directly to the people who need it. So we created this hot sauce bottle. We put their label on the back, our label on the front, and we decided, okay, as long as we can rebuy those, we'll give $4 a bottle. So that's what we
Wow.
do. So the first year we gave, I think it was over like $4,000. And this year we did a fundraiser and we were able to support almost 2 dogs this year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great. And it doesn't sound that big of a deal, but if you think about it, it's very expensive to to train and all that. So it's a big expense. So for us, it's a really big milestone to be able to give that from our company, our small business, and be able to support a veteran like that. It really means a lot to us.
Yeah, 'cause it's canines for veterans, and I
Canines for
understand.
veterans.
Yeah, they cover all the costs for the dog for the life of the dog, all its shots, all its bills, everything that it needs. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. And what they do is it's just incredible. And they really care for the veterans. They're not doing it as a business, like I said. Everybody donates their time. It's amazing. And that's why we decided to do a fundraiser for them this year. And I think we might actually, well, last year, I should say. This year we're going to do another one.
And I thought you said, yeah, you're doing 2 large fundraisers a year. Do I have that right?
Yes. We started last year. We did it in November. So this year we plan
Ah,
on doing two.
wow. And these are they virtual or are they in person?
Oh, they're in person. Yeah. We did our last one we did at a brewery, a local brewery. And it worked out great. Even though it was in November, we had fire pits out and we brought
Hmm.
in like 6 or 7 different veteran owned companies that are local to sell their wares. And it was nice. Everyone involved donated. And I mean, that event alone was able to get 1 dog. So
Wow.
it was amazing. I was surprised. I threw it together in a month because I wanted it ready for Veterans Day, and it was amazing. I was floored at how good it turned out, and the response we got from everybody was incredible as well. Yeah.
Incredible. So
Yeah.
what should people know about starting their own home business, Amber? What should people know?
Well, yeah, it's a road, that's for sure. But you have to be passionate about what you do. I mean, we love what
Mm.
we do. We love the people that we sell to. We love the support that we get. I think it's really just have a passion for what you do and just hold on tight because that's really you never know what's coming tomorrow, so to speak. But it's all worth it if you have a passion for it, that's for sure.
50% of all businesses fail within the first year. I think that's the number. And, you have to stick with it. And there's hard times. I started my business back in the 90s. And, whenever anybody wants to start a business today, I say, how long can you go without a paycheck?
Yep, and that's it
How
too.
long can you go? And if they say, well, I can last a month or two, and I said, no, you gotta, you need more money than that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot more than that.
yeah,
Yeah.
you need a lot more, especially if you have mortgage and kids, and yeah, it's very very tough. And does the does the government help you at all when there's military donations like this? Is it any help with the
Ah,
government?
well, um, there's some grants out there you can
Yeah.
get. Um, Being a veteran really doesn't, they don't do much,
Wow.
unfortunately. But there's a lot of different grants that are put out by private companies. There's a lot of people you can also find private investors for veterans because if you have a good business plan, you can definitely, a lot of people want to invest in a good business.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a little difficult when it comes to getting funding from the government. So, I mean, it's difficult even if you're not a veteran, but they really don't put out anything specific for veterans unless you're a 501c, which yeah, we don't want to go that route because then that would change our whole business platform. But
Yeah, then you have to, yeah, you have certain regulations there of what you have to spend and what you can do with it. And as far as, I mean, not only did you start a business out of your home, but you started it in the pandemic. It's remarkable. How long is the business now, Amber?
we are in our third year now.
Wow.
Yeah, so believe it or not, starting a business the way we did, starting off with spices, everybody was home and
Right.
everybody was still making money, making a check and income. So for us, it was a no brainer. It's
Ah.
like, okay, everybody's cooking, let's sell them some spices. And we're getting, our
Hmm.
spices, they're not something they are consumable, obviously, but they're not something that you would buy on a weekly or monthly basis. So that was a little bit hard to track. Like, how are we getting our
Right.
reorders? Because, how
Right.
long is it taking people to go through them? And we know how fast, I mean, we blow through them. We're just like, we're constantly, opening up a new bottle for our kitchen, but, everybody cooks differently. So, we do better in the summer because people are barbecuing a lot. But we're seeing a lot. I mean, it kind of sounds far out, but we're seeing a lot of reorders now in year 3 because now people are starting to run out and they're ordering like one here, one there. So you can tell those people are reordering. Those are reorders,
Mm.
you know?
And you make a point of not using sugar and no calories and etc. I mean, I just can't believe how I'm at stores and I just spices. I look at the ingredients and sugar is a second or third. Why are we putting sugar in our? It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. It's, you know why? Because it makes it a lot cheaper to produce if you put sugar and
Ah.
salt in it and then the ingredients are on the back end. We have a daughter who's got autoimmune, and we have friends who are, they have to be gluten free. So when we were creating, we kind of took all that into consideration as well, because we don't
Wow.
really eat high salt, high sugar. We're not a family that eats like that. So we wanted to make it so that we would put something on the market that we would eat ourselves, not just to
Mm.
make a buck. So anybody can eat them. There's nothing, I mean, we're coming out with a new one. It's called Little Heat, Little Sweet, and it's really good. And we're really excited about it because we're using granulated honey instead of sugar. So we're trying to
Ah.
stay on like the natural, ingredient path that we started with.
Let's talk about that. Like, you've got great names. So you mentioned Private Pork. Obviously, these are all military military names. And let's talk about that spice.
Private pork, like I said, is the one that we kind of came up with when we were in Italy.
Right.
That is our number one seller on our savory side, because we have two number one sellers. One is on the savory side and one is on the spicier side. And private pork tends to be our number one seller on the savory. You can use it for absolutely anything. It's great on pork. You can make salad dressing out of it. It's just universal. It's, if you're going to compare it to something, I would say it's more of an Italian dressing type,
Mm.
like an Italian seasoning. It's, like I said, no spice to it, no zip to it. It's just very savory. Some people use it on chicken. I've had girlfriends use it on turkey. You can use it on pork. You can use it on vegetables. I mean, it's so universal. It's crazy. You can use it in tomato sauce. I mean, you can, anything you could possibly think of. And people are addicted to it. Like, they buy 4 to 6 bottles at a time, which is
Wow.
awesome for us. I mean, we knew we loved it when we made it, but we didn't know it was going to have that big of an impact. So,
Can you put the wrong spice on a food?
yeah, you can. I mean, if we've done it, like when we've tested spices, I would like look at my husband, I'm like, "Oh, no, we don't want." So, yeah, you definitely can. You can put something on it that just shouldn't be there, because it'll bring out, you can put a spice on something that would bring out the, like, for me, if you put the wrong spice on chicken, it'll taste more foul than it will like
Huh.
like the seasoning, you'll taste more of the chicken. And I think the same thing goes for steak too. So, yeah, I think you can. And we've come across that when we've done testing. It's pretty interesting. But private pork was one of the ones that initially, when we came out with the name, we were so excited about it because, I mean, again, we were sitting around with Bob. It was me, Bill, and Bob coming up with our names,
It's
which,
great.
that's the fun part of
Great.
owning a
That's
business,
great.
because
That's
you
great.
can name it whatever you want, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
So the names that we came up with were hysterical, and we ended up with private pork. And the only thing that we have come across is that when people buy it from us, they're like, "Oh, can I only use it on pork? Because it says pork." I'm like,
Right.
"No." Or they're like, "I don't eat pork." I'm like, "No, you need to buy this. You absolutely need to buy this. This is, you can use it on everything." So we were thinking, we're like, did we name it wrong? But it doesn't seem to be hurting the sales of it. So I guess we didn't name it wrong. It's just one of those things, like you said, that an owner is like, "Did I do that wrong?" But I think it's okay.
Good
And
for
then
you.
our other number one seller on our heated side is our A3.
Right.
And that one has nothing to do with military, which is really funny. It was the rendition of, this was my baby, so to speak. I wanted a seasoning salt that was spicy but had like a back end to it. So poor Bill, he went through the ringer with me and my kids, because my kids love it too, because I was using something similar years ago. So we were his worst critic, so to speak. And we went through this again. It probably took another 3 to 6 months for him to finally
Wow.
nail it. And we were all sitting at the kitchen counter, we're like, that's it. That is it. So um, it's hysterical. My kids carry it in their backpacks. Like
Huh.
they love it. And it seems to be hitting a younger generation because of the flavor, which is interesting. Like my daughter has sold it to all of her friends. They love it. They're like they brag about it online. It's hysterical. But it is a really good seasoning. It's spicy, but it doesn't blow you away. It can go on absolutely anything. As Bill says, it's anything, anywhere, anytime is what you can put it on. So,
And the name? How'd you come up with A3?
well, my husband is that type of a thinker. Like, there was A1, A2, A3. So it was the
Ah.
third rendition.
Uh,
And the funny thing is we weren't going to name it A3. We had gone on a podcast with friends of ours who have a coffee business. And Bob had said, he's like, oh yeah, we're coming out with A3. And it was so funny because Bill and I both looked at him like, okay, I guess that's the name. And believe it or not, it's the best name for it. People see the name and they're like, what's this A3? It's like, it's intriguing to them because they just want to know what it is. And then they end up buying it because they're like, oh, this is great after they taste it.
there's a programming language called C, and people, asked, "How did you come up with C?" And they said, "Well, I believe it was AT&T Labs. We first named it A, and then we named it B. So I mean,
Right.
there's no real, and then we came up with C." Talk to me about the process of tasting spices. Do you have like ginger to cleanse the palate between each one? Do you apply it to different meats? What's that process of knowing when you arrive to the right spice?
Well, we don't do multiples at a time.
I
So
say,
what like with A3, he had those three renditions, so to speak. So we did a piece of chicken and we did one, two, and three. And then we cooked them on the grill, just like we would normally do. And then we
wow.
tried all three of them. We did the same thing when we made our fish. We put, on three different types of fish. We tried it on. Usually you kind of know when you taste it out of the bottle, even though it's a little bit more robust,
Mm,
but because when you cook with it, some of the flavor tends to burn off.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, if you see our kitchen is huge. So we kind of line up all the food. We have a few of our taste testers over, which are, people that we usually trust that are going to tell us the truth and not go, oh, this is fabulous. Like, no, I don't want that. I want the truth. So we'll have people over and they'll just walk around our kitchen and taste all of them and give us their honest opinion. And we've come up with a lot of them like that.
Wow. And when you're preparing that with chicken or fish, whatever it may be, you don't add any salt or anything to the chicken at all. You just dry,
Yep.
and then you add that's the only spice you add.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun too because it produces camaraderie.
Yeah.
We came up with one of our names, the new one that's coming out. We came up with one of our names because we had people over to taste test, and she's like, "Oh, it's just a little heat and a little sweet," and the way she said it was so cute.
Ah,
And I'm like, "That's it. That's got to be the name." So that's our new one that's coming out. We should have that by the beginning of next month.
and you said you went to Italy and you got some spices there. How do the Italians, my father's Italian. I've been to Italy many, many times, a lot of family there. Do they treat spice differently there?
Um, no, I wouldn't say so. They're minimalists when it comes to spices, in my opinion.
Mm.
Um, they they're really more all natural, more, if they're going to use thyme and oregano, they're going to use fresh,
Mm.
They don't seem to have a lot. Like when we went there, we have friends that live there. So, I saw their cabinet when they opened it, and they
Yeah.
don't have a spice cabinet like we have here in the United States at all
Right.
because they don't need it. They're cooking more fresh, more,
From the table?
yeah. So and they don't have a packed refrigerator, and they only have what they're going to eat for that day, which I envy. I look at my
Yes.
refrigerator and I'm like, oh, so it'd be great to be able to do that here, but for some reason we're just trained to pack it all in there.
Yeah, we are. They have very small refrigerators, and I remember going there with some friends of mine, and my uncle, opened up the cupboard and took out eggs. And my friends
Hmm.
are like, "Those eggs are they're going to be chickens inside that." I said, "No, those are right from the farm. You don't have to worry about that then." And it's just very, very different way of eating there. But yeah, that's a really good point. They are really minimalist because they'll just use some thyme or they'll use some oregano that they got from the garden,
Yeah.
with that meal, and that'll be it. You don't really see a lot of spice mixes, and that's a really good point. I never really thought of that. It's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, they do, I mean, and in their spice blend, I mean, the one that we had found there was a ton of MSG, which kind of surprised me.
Ah,
But I guess
really?
if you're not really using a lot of spice blends and you're using all natural from the garden and stuff, you really wouldn't, but that's one of the reasons why we kind of broke it down, because once we had it, dissected, so to speak, we realized, oh gosh, it's got a lot of stuff in there that we would never eat. So, yeah, of course we love the flavor. How can we get that from what's already in it? So, but yeah, the trip was incredible. We were there for like 19 days,
Wow.
and it's when our kids were a lot smaller. But yeah, it was really really interesting to see how they cook and how they, it was amazing.
Were you in the north or the south?
We were in Bergamo, so
Ah,
north.
yeah, 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 that's very north. A lot more dairy there, a lot more creams in the north. I'm from the south and they use olive oil instead of milk. It's
Oh,
interesting how the different regions
isn't it?
cook. Yeah, very.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the part about you dissecting some of these spices like that. How did you find out that there was MSG in there? You actually doing scientific tests and
No, believe it or not, that it said MSG. That was the only thing we could figure
oh.
out. That's the only thing they didn't put in Italian. So yeah, they just abbreviated it. So we knew what that portion of it. And there's some things that we have the same word, so to speak. So
Right.
yeah, we and like I said, that took a good solid year to really come up with that one, because we
Wow.
kept playing around with it, and it's amazing on pork. I mean, it is amazing. So, and I'm not just tooting our own horn over here. It really is amazing.
Very cool. And when you say it took a year, how often are you testing it? Are you testing it once, twice a week? Are you testing it? That must be something. Keep on testing. I don't know. You put your pinky in it, then you have it on some meat or something. It's not there yet. Something's missing. That must be
Yeah,
painstaking.
it really is. But Bill has a brain that loves the process of that. Like
I
he
say.
loves to create that and measure it out and know what's missing. And me, I'm just like, I'll taste it, but I don't have time for that. But thank goodness, because when you're running a business, you need two people like that, right?
Right.
So yeah, for him, it's like, all right, I'll whip up another batch. Let's try this. I'll whip up another batch. Let's try this. So, and granted, at that point, when we created Private Pork, we did not have the business even in our thoughts at that point. So we didn't care. We were just like, oh, well, no, it's something. It's missing something. It's missing something. And one of the main ingredients in it is juniper berries.
Wow.
Yeah, which who
Wow.
would have thought, right? But yeah, it's
Wow.
it's delicious.
Incredible. And does it have to be unanimous amongst you three for it to go?
Well, no, because Bob's not here all the time, so we
Right.
try to send him out some. We're like, "Here you go," but he trusts us in our ventures of coming out. We all pretty much trust Bill, but I would have to say that our two kids and me, we are definitely
That's it.
it stops at us.
I say.
Because, Bill will sit there and try like 4 of them that he's tried, and then all this, his palate gets a little twisted because now he's tried all 4, and he's like, "Well, I think I like that one. Well, I think I like that one." And we're like, "No, get rid of that one. We want that one." So, and usually the kids and I are unanimous. I mean, they're adults now, but it's pretty unanimous with us that when we like something, we've almost never had, "Oh, well, she likes that, he likes that, and I like this." It's always been unanimous so
Mm.
far.
You've got great videos on TikTok and on Instagram about the family enjoying this and what you're doing with some. You got great recipes up on the website and blogs. I mean, you really do a great job of informing the base of who you are and this is just our family doing this. This is how we do things, and it's a real welcoming kind of warm persona that you've created there, Amber.
Oh, thanks. I mean, well, I think people buy from people,
Mm,
you're not going to buy from a website if there's no story or there's no, and I wanted people to know what our story is, because I feel like we give back.
right.
Our family is involved, both of our kids, they work for the company, my husband's making the spices, and, I mean, it's just, we really, we're all involved up to our necks, so to speak, but we
Right.
all enjoy it. We have a lot of fun. I mean, when we did the fundraiser, it was like all hands on deck. Everybody was working it, and there was no problem. It's just what we do. So I like to share that portion of it, so people know, like, what are we putting into it? Why are we putting it into it? And it makes a difference, I think. And it
I
makes a
think it.
difference with our consumers too, because they know what they're investing in.
Hmm. Hmm. Blackened Ops, LZ Chicken, Son of a Fish, Chicago Prime, Taco Bout It.
Yeah.
Blackened Ops. So is that for Blackened? Talk to me
Yes,
about
that's
that.
blackened seasoning. Yeah. That one was the easiest one because we're like, okay, it was kind of a given. We're like, yeah, we
Hmm.
should name it that. Um, Son of a Fish was actually kind of interesting because, again, it was us three sitting around, and my husband, he was probably at that point getting a little silly because we were mixing stuff, and by the end of the day, and he was like, "Son of a fish," and I'm like, "We got it, we have to." So, and that's fine. And everybody that sees it, like, we do go to some markets and stuff, and anybody that sees it, they just say it out loud and they start laughing. So I mean, that alone is fun.
I big advocate of Old Bay. I used to put Old Bay on a lot of stuff. I mean, that's been around for I don't know how long, but is it similar to that?
It's not.
No.
It's How do I explain it? It's more. It's a little when you taste it in your hand. To me, it's different when it's on fish.
Huh.
But like my son loves it on potatoes.
Hmm.
My daughter likes it on absolutely everything. It's like one of her favorites. So it's like it's kind of weird. Like I think it tastes great on whitefish. I love it on whitefish, but I like talk about it on salmon. So I guess it's just kind of your palate and what you prefer, right? But it's a little spicy, it's a little zippy, it's a little zesty. It enhances any fish it goes on. It's delicious. But on potatoes, I was amazed because my son's always testing stuff out. So he put it on like chunks of potatoes and put it in the air fryer. It was amazing. So
So
that's the
is
good thing.
so is the dinner at your house just some meat and just the spices all around? They get to decide how to season everything.
Well, dinner at our house is interesting because
Yeah.
usually my kids still live at home. So when we cook, we're cooking for four usually. And then there's usually somebody who is kind of a straggler that pops in or pops out because
Sure.
they're like, oh, the Domenzes are cooking. So, um, but it's funny because I'll start something and then I'll walk away because I'm not really the cook in the house. I do cook a lot, but I'd rather not. My husband's really the cook. But during the week, I usually do most of the cooking. But I'll start something and I'll walk away. I usually make stuff that I can walk away from for a few minutes. You'll see my son over there mixing it up and adding stuff to it. And then he walks away. And then my daughter will walk up, she'll mix it, add something to it. And then she walks away. And then my husband gets home and he like looks at it and he's like, oh, it needs, and then he'll add something. So by the time we eat dinner, we've all had a hand in that meal. Everybody has messed with that meal. So it makes it a little difficult when I'm trying to create things because I don't exactly know what's in it. So I have to do it when I'm home by myself to create some of the recipes because if I don't, there's always somebody messing with it, but it
Hmm.
always turns out great. So they all know how to cook and they all like love to cook at home. So that's a bonus right there.
LZ Chicken.
LZ chicken. So LZ is a landing zone. It's actually a
Uh,
name of a landing zone. It's called LZ chicken. So
hmm.
that's how we got that name. I can't tell you where it is because I don't remember, but my husband knows where it is. But that was where that came from. That's where that name came.
And Chicago Prime. That's more of a steak spice.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, that one took a little bit too, because that was one of the ones that I wanted to bring out. I'm like, we really need one for red meat. We need like something for steak, and
Hmm.
that one took a little bit because what everybody else liked and what I liked were kind of two different things. So that one took a little bit too. That one took a couple months as well.
Hmm.
We had to keep trying and keep trying, but it came out perfect. Everybody loves it. That's another one that's good on potatoes and beef, and I've had people use it on chicken. I mean, it's like I said, the names are what it's great on, but you can use them on anything.
They're flexible enough. Yeah. So on the podcast, Amber, I always bring up. So when I started my business back in the '90s, I wasn't paying attention to my weight. I blew up to 340 pounds. The doctor said you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So within 6 7 months, I lost over 100 pounds. And people always ask me how, and I just say discipline. I just got focus and discipline, and that's the way I attacked it. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life.
Um, I am of I think my husband is more disciplined than I am. I can change my discipline, so to speak, at the drop of a hat. But if I have a goal, I'm on it. Like
Mm.
the business for me is, to me, I'm very disciplined when it comes to the business. I have, what I do in the morning, what I do in the afternoon, what I do in the evening, who do I need to call? What do I need to follow up on? I'm very diligent when it comes to that, but I also like changing things up. I
Hmm.
don't like to get bored. So to me, sometimes discipline becomes a little bit boring. So then I switch it up a little bit, but not too much. But I understand what you're saying, because the funny thing is when we started Core Spice, Bill and I were, and Bob, we were all about 20, 25 pounds overweight. So when
Really?
we started, we literally only ate because again, Bob was here with us, right? So we only ate what we cooked, and we cooked only with Core Spice, and we cooked mostly, I mean, and at the time we started off with LZ chicken, private pork, and blackened ops. So I did every meal I possibly could create, and Bill did as well, out of those three. How could we mix them? How could we blend them? How can we, like, what can we turn this into? So
Hmm.
it wasn't schlocky meals, so to speak. It was
Mm.
literally, we took time because we needed to start creating recipes. So we took a lot of thought and a lot of time into it. Next thing you know, we're all down 20 to 25 pounds.
Wow.
So everybody else gained weight over COVID. We lost because we had that goal of, creating the recipes and really eating well with what, we wanted to put out to the customer. Like, what can you do with this that's under 30 minutes? Because almost all of our recipes are under 30 minutes, and they're
Mm.
super healthy. So, we wanted to do how we eat,
Hmm.
and we got caught up like everybody else. Like you say, you get caught up in life and whatever. And all of a sudden you look and you're like, oof, yeah, got to get rid of that. So we all did. We all lost weight, and we've all kept it
Incredible.
up. So yeah,
That's the hardest part right there, keeping it off. Would your husband agree that he's more disciplined than you are?
definitely,
Really?
definitely,
His
without a doubt.
military background?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but I think it's mostly his military background. He just, yeah, he's way more disciplined. Way more. He will tell you that. He's always like, why do you always, like, in the kitchen, I'm always putting things back where they fit. And it makes him crazy. He's like, why can't you
Why?
just put things back where they belong? I'm like, I'm mixing it up a little bit. I'm like, you're just trying to figure out where stuff is. I'm like, it's fine. It makes him crazy. But you know what? It's to me, it's fun. But
And
so
that's
I
still
think,
a process.
but the things that aren't, to me, the things that aren't super important, I don't feel that
Mm.
I don't have to be diligent on. The things that are important, I'm super focused and diligent on. So, because the other stuff, it's like, I just don't have time to be that focused on, where that cup goes. I don't care. Go find it.
You prioritize. Yeah,
I
very
do.
interesting. Yeah,
I
and
do.
you said it's a little boring because perhaps sometimes it's predictable, and you don't like that. You like the randomness.
Yeah, but I don't like the randomness when it comes to my business. See, that's so, it's kind
Ah,
of, I don't like the randomness at all.
no surprises with the business.
No, that
Yeah.
needs to be consistent. That I'm a firm believer that consistency is huge when it comes to that.
Amber Edwards, what motivates you?
Um, Accomplishment.
Hmm.
That's what motivates me. When things are accomplished and there's a good outcome, it motivates me to do more of that, or try something else that's going to come have that same feeling of accomplishment and motivation. To me, motivation and accomplishment go together.
So when you see the fruits of your labor helping a veteran with a dog like that and changing their life, that must be astoundingly rewarding.
Yes, it is. It is. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I never thought, I mean, a few years back, like Bill and I would have never thought that this is what we'd be doing, and how much we could actually make a difference. And we would have never thought that we would have been here now. Because at first the business was kind of like, yeah, we'll try it. We'll bring out 3 spices. We'll see how it goes. And now it's, we've got 8 spices, and we've almost tripled our income in 3 years. So it's, we obviously have a passion for it because it's working.
What lessons particularly that you learned when you started do you wish you would know now? Anything can any come to mind?
Um, Investigate your vendors with a fine tooth comb. Um, I think a lot of times some businesses might go under because of their vendors. to be completely honest. Our first vendor for our 3 spice blends, they seemed great and wonderful, but they were overcharging us. They changed our recipe and they were one of the ones that changed the percentage of salt. So
Whoa.
we got our samples and we're like, why is this so salty? Like, we're only supposed to have this percentage of salt. But for them, they could still charge us the higher dollar amount, but we were paying for what we wanted.
Wow.
So we did one order from them, which was overpriced and whatever. And the order was fine because they did cut the salt down. So we did, because we weren't going to sell it to our customers the way it was. So we fixed it before we got it, but we still, I knew that we needed to switch. We switched to another vendor, and we've had no problems since. He does, we fly out to Denver once a year. We do all of our recipes with him, like for an entire day. So we're sitting there creating it with him. And then we know exactly what's going into it when we decide that we're going to launch another product line. So it works out well. And that other company didn't do that for us. So there's a lot of times that we threw money away because that people aren't what they say they are. So I think and they take advantage of small business, which
Yeah, they
is
do.
horrible. But now we're in a good place. We've got some really good vendors. We, if we want to launch a new product line, we know we've got the support of our vendors, and we know we're not being overcharged. And, some of our vendors will, help us with terms sometimes, depending on the time of year. So like I said, we've got a lot of support for what we do, and it makes a huge difference when you're running a business, because it makes it a little easier. It takes that kind of off your plate, worrying about that when you can be worrying about running your business.
Are there any reviews of, there's reviews certainly uh, do your spices get reviewed by any journalist? Are there spice review journalists?
That's what we're working on right now.
Huh.
So we've been so focused on like creating and building our core business that this year is all focused on micro influencers and getting our product out to people who could do reviews. And the micro influencers have been working incredibly, like just fabulous for us.
Wow.
And it's, I run the day to day on the business. So it's like, that's a lot on my plate. And I
Hmm.
just have to prioritize of what I can move on to next. So, and right now this year is all focused on doing micro influencers, getting some articles written in magazines, really getting our company promoted. So I hired a marketing guru, so to speak. And I mean, I do most of our marketing. I post everything on Facebook, and, my daughter does half of it when I don't have the time. She like fills in the gaps, which is great. But we, it, to have someone take over that portion of the business is amazing, because it started to consume me. I was spending most of my day doing marketing, and I was like, wait a second, and it helps because obviously if nobody knows about you, they're not going to buy your product. But
Right.
at the same account, you still got to pay bills and, do all that other stuff or even, reach out to vendors and, all the other stuff that goes along with running a business. So this year we just decided that's it. We have to hire an outside source and make sure that that person is going to do what we want. Because that was another thing, like I was talking about vendors, you really need to make sure that that person is geared for your business and not
Mm.
just the big picture. They need to do exactly what your big picture needs. So, and we found someone like that, which is amazing. So working with her is great. And so far so good. We're doing a launch of our new product line at the beginning of the month, and we're doing a press release again at the beginning of the month, which is something that I certainly couldn't do. I know what my strengths are and I know what my weaknesses are, so
Mm.
I try to put the right people in the right places. But yeah, we're working on all of that so we can, grow more online and have more visibility that way.
Yeah, people don't realize you got to keep the lights on. You've got to be forward and move your business forward and help, but you still have to be able to produce and fulfill everything. How do you measure success, Amber?
Um, I measure success with so my husband and I, we tend to go to a lot of markets in the summer because we have a ton of markets out in the Northwest, the Midwest. We just have a ton. So we like to go and actually put product in people's hands.
Mm.
To me, I measure success when there's, and it almost happens every single time now, because now we're starting to get that repeat business. We have someone that walks up behind someone that's buying a product from us, and they're like, "You have to buy that. That
Wow.
is the most amazing stuff I've ever tried." Da, da, da. And they go on. And it's a joke now, because I'm like, I swear I did not pay them to do that. But that to me that's how I measure success, is people who really believe in what you're selling them, and they're returning and they're telling everybody about it. That is really the measure of success for me. I think my husband would agree too.
Hmm. Will you ever, you won't, opening a restaurant with all your spices, that's just too much work, right?
It
That's
is. And you know what? It's retail. And,
right.
I don't want to work on Christmas. So
Mm,
just, I worked retail before we started this, not retail, but I worked in the beauty industry, which
right.
pretty much was retail hours. And yeah, I don't want to do that anymore.
Mm.
I will sell you spices and I will show you how to cook them and do all that. But yeah, the opening up a restaurant, not so much. Not so
And,
much.
and you've got great recipes where I was watching you make avocado toast with your spice, and you've got great videos as well, and you put so much great content out there. And Amber Edwards, just an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today. How can we get in touch with you? How can we get? I ordered the 7-pack. I can't wait to get him. Start trying. How can people get there?
So you can go online to corespice.com. We're also on Facebook. We have a group on Facebook, which would be great to join, because there's a ton of recipes being posted by everybody, which is
Ah.
wonderful. And then we also are on Instagram and TikTok, and it's all under Core Spice or Core Spices. But corespice.com is really where you will find a place to order and find out who we are and what we do.
And it's COR Spice, Core, COR Spice. I'll put it in the show notes. Amber, thank you so much for your time. Please tell your husband I said hello. I wish you good luck. If I'm ever in the area, perhaps we can have some spices together. It'll be great, all of us. Thank you so much for
Definitely.
your time today. You be well.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources, and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.